20 staff pay for sexual services whilst working for them. And the actress Emma Chambers has died aged 53. She was best known for playing Alice Tinker in The Vicar of Dibley. And Britain is set for its coldest February week in 5 years as freezing air, dubbed the Beast from the East, arrives from Russia. Well, now BBC News, Alistair Leithhead presents Damming the Nile.
The River Nile is the world's longest river. And it's where the world's first war over water could be fought. The first of its two great tributaries, the White Nile, flows from Lake Victoria. But our journey begins in Ethiopia, following the Blue Nile from Lake Tana, as it sweeps through Africa's Grand Canyon to where a dam is being built, close to the Sudan border. Lake Tana, the source of the river, is a place of myth and legend. It's the biggest lake in Ethiopia, and many of its 37 islands have their own monasteries. It's a very sacred place for Ethiopian Orthodox Christians. This monastery dates back to the 14th century. Some of these paintings are more than 400 years old. The Nile appears in the Old Testament, and legend has it that the Ark of the Covenant was briefly brought here. But all is not calm on these waters. The struggle for control of this great river is dividing the three countries that share it. The Nile is the bringer of life, and from where it launches itself downstream, it has the power to bring peace or bring war.
This is where the Blue Nile begins its long journey. From here up in the Ethiopian highlands, it will cut through caverns and canyons, cross floodplains through Sudan and Egypt, as it emerges out in the delta of the Mediterranean Sea.
Around 85% of that water comes from here, and that's why a vast new dam being built in Ethiopia is dividing nations.
السلام عليكم أيها الشعب المصري. الآن يتكلمون عن سد النهضة ومشاكل سد النهضة. أرجو الاستماع والفهم
This is the grand Ethiopian Renaissance
وتعلم
dam,
مشاكل سد النهضة.
and it's driving Ethiopia's ambitious plans for industrial revolution, to put its growing population to work, to power the region and to tame the river. But it's also at the heart of a row that's sucked in Sudan and Egypt and threatens peace in this part of Africa.
When it's finished,
هذا سوف يؤثر على كمية المياه التي تأتي إلى السودان وكمية المياه التي تأتي إلى مصر.
It will not only power this country, but the surrounding countries as well. And Ethiopia didn't even ask the countries downstream.
الإسرائيليين هم الذين يمولون هذا المشروع.
After just 5 years of work, it's almost 2/3 complete.
This project is
يعني 66%
being built by
انتهى
Ethiopians
من
and
بناء
that
سد
will
النهضة.
benefit other African brothers, sisters, and other countries across the globe.
Engineer Simignu Bekele is the project manager. He says it's costing at least $4.5 billion, and that's probably an underestimate. He insists that downstream countries shouldn't worry, as it's not consuming any water.
This project is a hydroelectric project. It is a non-water consuming scheme project that is only dedicated to to generate electricity. This shows how the government of Ethiopia, how the people of the nations are committed themselves to eradicate our common enemy, poverty.
The construction works are impressive. This second dam sweeps across a 5-kilometre valley, joining two mountains to create the edge of a vast reservoir. All this and a lot more will be flooded. Once finished and filled, it'll cover more than 1,800 square kilometres, larger than the size of Greater London. It'll flood the Blue Nile for nearly 250 kilometres upstream. If it's filled too fast, it'll reduce the amount of water that flows to Sudan and Egypt. Thousands of people have already been moved to make way for the lake. The power lines are ready and waiting for the electricity the dam will provide. 70% of Ethiopia, that's 70 million people, don't have any electricity.
هذا السد الذي ستجوع بسببه مصر والسودان. الجوع سينتشر في مصر والسودان بعد سنة أو سنتين يعني. والسيسي يتواطأ مع الإسرائيليين لتنفيذ هذا المشروع.
As well as that, we would also be able to own TVs, a fridge, and so many other things.
Modernization is already changing life in the capital, Addis Ababa. This is East Africa's first metro system. The amount of construction going on speaks volumes. Ethiopia wants to pull its people out of poverty, to create jobs and get over its historic image of drought and famine. It's Africa's fastest growing economy right now, but with a population set to double in 30 years, it needs to grow even faster just to keep up. Hence the need for cheap, renewable energy. But the cost of government ambition is human rights, freedom of speech and democracy. Protests across the country are being crushed. To the government, development is everything.
It's one of the most important flagship projects for Ethiopia. It is a project that is going to nourish the entire development and the transformation of the country. It's a very important energy project.
There is money to spend, and the minister says the people will pay for the dam through lotteries, contributions and taxes. He insists that despite its fears, Egypt will get more rather than less water.
It's not about control of the flow. It's really about providing opportunity for us to develop ourselves through energy development. It has a lot of benefits for the downstream countries, basically.
Construction on the dam is going on around the clock. Such is the urgency to get this built and generating power. But because Ethiopia didn't consult with Sudan or Egypt before starting work during the Arab Spring, talks between the three countries keep collapsing. A new political order is emerging and Egypt doesn't like it.
I've spoken to senior people in Ethiopia who've said that they're afraid of a war with Egypt over water, that they might bomb this dam. That's the level of anger. What do you think about that?
No, I don't think so. This kind of extreme type of ideas are not welcomed. This will not happen in this region, I'm sure. There is no recorded history which shows that war has erupted because of water. This water belongs to all of us. We have to develop it in a responsible way than thinking about war.
But whatever he says, the Blue Nile can now be controlled by Ethiopia. And that's a big concern for Egypt when so much of the water that reaches Cairo comes from here. Sudan, however, its next stop, likes the look of the cheap electricity that's heading its way. The waters of the Nile bring life to Sudan. One of the world's biggest irrigation schemes was created here more than a century ago to grow cotton for Britain's industrial revolution. But now it's the Gulf states who need what Sudan can grow. The Blue Nile heads north through these vast irrigated lands to join the White Nile before meandering through a desert steeped in ancient history. We're following it to ask if a row over who controls its flow could lead to war.
It's here in Khartoum that the Blue Nile and the White Nile meet and merge and then head north to Egypt. The river's travelled about a third of the way from its source to the sea, and it's growing in strength and in size. So what does Sudan, this vast country only now emerging from years of US sanctions, think about Ethiopia building this dam upstream? Well, it thinks it's a great idea.
Land is not in short supply. And with the power of the sun and the waters of the Nile, Sudan's agricultural potential is huge. This is